I'm Dorothy Chen, 78 years old. When my sister died, her son Kevin immediately tried to get me declared mentally incompetent so he could control my $5 million estate. He hired doctors to testify I had dementia, filed guardianship papers, and told the court I was too confused to manage my money. What Kevin didn't know was that I'm a retired neurologist who specialized in dementia for 45 years. I knew exactly what he was doing. This is how I used my medical expertise to expose his fraud and get him charged with attempted elder exploitation. Subscribe now. Hit the bell for more revenge stories. My name is Dorothy Chen. I'm 78 years old and I live alone in Portland, Oregon. 6 months ago, my younger sister Margaret died from cancer at 75. We were extremely close our entire lives. Margaret had one son, Kevin, who was 52 years old. Kevin was a real estate agent who always struggled with money. He drove expensive cars he couldn't afford, lived in a house with a mortgage he could barely pay, and constantly borrowed money from Margaret that he never repaid. I never married and never had children. I spent my entire career as a neurologist specializing in Alzheimer's disease and dementia. I worked at major research hospitals for 45 years before retiring 5 years ago. I published over 60 research papers on cognitive decline and testified as an expert witness in hundreds of legal cases involving mental competency. I also happened to be wealthy. I invested wisely throughout my career and inherited money from my parents. My estate was worth approximately $5 million. Since I had no children, my will left everything to a medical research foundation that studies Alzheimer's disease. Kevin knew about my wealth. He'd asked me for loans multiple times over the years, which I always refused. After Margaret died, Kevin started visiting me frequently. At first, I thought he was being kind, checking on his elderly aunt after losing her sister. Then things got strange. Kevin started asking me odd questions during his visits. Aunt Dorothy, what year is it? Aunt Dorothy, who's the president? Aunt Dorothy, do you remember what you had for breakfast? I found it patronizing and insulting. I'm 78, not incompetent. I read medical journals every day. I manage all my own finances. I drive, shop, cook, and live completely independently. One day, Kevin brought a doctor with him. Aunt Dorothy, this is Dr. Harrison. He's a geriatric specialist. I've been worried about your memory lately. Would you mind if Dr. Harrison asks you some questions? I was shocked. Kevin, there's nothing wrong with my memory. I don't need a geriatric assessment. Please, Aunt Dorothy. Just humor me. I'm worried about you living alone. Dr. Harrison asked me basic cognitive questions. I answered everything correctly because there was nothing wrong with my cognition. But Dr. Harrison kept pushing, asking the same questions multiple times, trying to confuse me. After the visit, I was suspicious. I called a colleague who still practiced medicine. Tom, do you know a Dr. Richard Harrison who supposedly specializes in geriatrics? Tom checked. Dorothy, Richard Harrison had his medical license suspended 2 years ago for falsifying patient records in guardianship cases. He's not allowed to practice medicine. That's when I understood what was happening. Kevin was trying to get me declared mentally incompetent so he could become my legal guardian and control my $5 million estate. I hired a private investigator named Sarah Martinez. Within 2 weeks, Sarah discovered Kevin's entire scheme. Kevin had paid Dr. Harrison $5,000 to write a false report claiming I had severe dementia and couldn't manage my affairs. Kevin had already filed guardianship papers in court, scheduled a competency hearing, and hired a lawyer who specialized in taking control of elderly people's estates. The hearing was scheduled for 3 weeks away. Kevin's plan was simple: present Dr. Harrison's fake medical report, bring witnesses who would claim I was confused, and convince the judge to appoint Kevin as my guardian. Once Kevin controlled my estate, he would sell my house, liquidate my investments, and spend my money. I decided to fight back using my expertise. I contacted 3 of my former colleagues who were top neurologists at major hospitals. I asked each of them to conduct a complete neurological and cognitive assessment on me. All 3 examined me thoroughly. The results were clear. I had absolutely no cognitive impairment whatsoever. My memory was excellent. My reasoning was sharp. I had no signs of dementia or any mental decline. All 3 doctors wrote detailed reports confirming I was completely mentally competent. I also hired one of the best attorneys in Portland, Michael Stevens. Michael specialized in elder law and had successfully defended dozens of elderly people against false guardianship attempts. Dorothy, what Kevin is doing is called elder exploitation, Michael explained. He's trying to steal your estate by falsely claiming you're incompetent. It's both a civil and criminal offense. We're going to destroy him in court. The competency hearing arrived. Kevin showed up with his lawyer and Dr. Harrison. Kevin looked confident, expecting an easy victory over a confused old woman. The judge called the hearing to order. We're here to determine whether Dorothy Chen requires a guardian due to mental incapacity. Mr. Williams, present your evidence. Kevin's lawyer stood up. Your Honor, Dr. Richard Harrison has examined Miss Chen and determined she has severe dementia. She cannot manage her finances or make sound decisions. Her nephew, Kevin Williams, is requesting guardianship to protect her. Dr. Harrison testified. I examined Ms. Chen 3 weeks ago. She displayed significant memory impairment, confusion about dates, and inability to manage complex tasks. In my professional opinion, she requires a guardian. Michael cross-examined Dr. Harrison. Dr. Harrison, are you currently licensed to practice medicine in Oregon? Dr. Harrison hesitated. My license is temporarily inactive. Your license was suspended 2 years ago for falsifying medical records in guardianship cases, correct? That was a misunderstanding. How much did Kevin Williams pay you to write this false report about Ms. Chen? I conducted a legitimate examination. Michael presented bank records showing Kevin had paid Dr. Harrison $5,000 2 days before the examination. Then it was my turn. I testified for 30 minutes. I explained my 45-year career as a neurologist specializing in dementia. I described my current activities, reading medical journals, managing investments, living independently. I answered every question the judge asked with perfect clarity. Your Honor, I said, I specialized in diagnosing dementia for 4.5 decades. I know exactly what cognitive impairment looks like. I don't have it. My nephew is trying to steal my estate by falsely claiming I'm incompetent. This is elder exploitation fraud. Michael presented the 3 neurological reports from my colleagues. Each report definitively stated I had no cognitive impairment whatsoever. The judge was furious. Mr. Williams, you brought a doctor with a suspended license to present false testimony about your aunt's mental state. You paid him $5,000 to lie. This is fraud, perjury, and attempted elder exploitation. Kevin tried to defend himself. Your Honor, I was genuinely worried about my aunt. You thought you could steal $5 million from a woman with no cognitive problems by falsely declaring her incompetent. Guardianship petition denied. I'm referring this case to the district attorney for criminal prosecution. Kevin was arrested the following week. He was charged with attempted elder exploitation, conspiracy to commit fraud, and solicitation of false testimony. Dr. Harrison was charged with practicing medicine without a license and making false statements in legal proceedings. Kevin's trial happened 4 months later. The evidence was overwhelming. The prosecutor presented the bank records showing the $5,000 payment to Dr. Harrison, the guardianship petition Kevin had filed, and testimony from the private investigator about Kevin's scheme. I testified about my medical background and how I immediately recognized what Kevin was trying to do. I've testified as an expert witness in hundreds of competency cases. I know exactly how these frauds work. Kevin thought he could fool a judge because I'm 78. He forgot I spent 45 years diagnosing the exact condition he was falsely claiming I had. The police arrested Amber 2 weeks later. She was charged with 3 counts of bigamy, multiple counts of fraud, and theft. Her bail was set at $200,000, which she couldn't pay because all her money had come from the men she'd defrauded. Amber's case went to trial 4 months later. David testified about how she'd isolated him from family, controlled his money, and demanded $300,000 for a divorce from a marriage that was never legal. Her second husband testified that Amber had disappeared after emptying their joint accounts, and he'd never heard from her again. Her third husband's family testified about the suspicious circumstances of his death and how Amber had inherited everything. The prosecutor presented evidence of the bigamy, the affair, the financial fraud, and Amber's pattern of targeting successful older men. Ladies and gentlemen of the jury, Amber Kowalski is a career criminal who has spent the last decade defrauding men through fake marriages and theft. She never divorced her previous husbands. She married the defendant's son while committing bigamy. She isolated him from his family and stole his money. This is not a case of a failed marriage. This is organized fraud. The jury convicted Amber on all charges. The judge sentenced her to 8 years in state prison. Ms. Kowalski, you have systematically defrauded and victimized multiple men through bigamous marriages and theft. You are a danger to society. 8 years in state prison. Amber tried to appeal, claiming the evidence was obtained illegally. The appeal was denied. She's currently 3 years into her sentence and will serve at least 6 years before being eligible for parole. David's marriage was legally annulled since it was bigamous from the start. He recovered most of his money because the court ruled that all financial transactions during the invalid marriage were fraudulent. Amber was ordered to pay full restitution, though she has no money. David and I rebuilt our relationship. He apologized for letting Amber isolate him from me, and I forgave him completely. She's a professional con artist. She knew exactly how to manipulate you. I'm just glad you're free. Now, at 78, I still do consulting work for the private investigation firm. I've started giving talks at senior centers about recognizing financial exploitation and fraud, especially from family members and romantic partners. I spent 35 years investigating fraud, I tell audiences. The signs are always the same: isolation from family, controlling access to money, moving too fast in relationships, refusing to share information about their past. Trust your instincts and verify everything. David is now dating someone age-appropriate, who has her own career and respects family relationships. He's learned to be more cautious and to value the people who truly care about him. Amber will be released from prison when she's 43 years old. She'll have a felony record, no money, and a reputation that will follow her forever. Every future employer, landlord, or romantic partner will find out she's a convicted bigamist and fraud when they search her name online. People sometimes ask if I feel guilty about sending my son's wife to prison. The answer is absolutely not. Amber is a career criminal who victimized multiple men, including my son. She deserves every day of that sentence. I'm 78 years old. I'm a retired private investigator with 35 years of experience. I'm a mother who protected her son from a predator. And I'm a woman who proved that age brings expertise that criminals consistently underestimate. Amber thought she'd found an easy target, a successful man with an elderly mother who could be pushed aside. She learned that some elderly mothers spent decades investigating people exactly like her. She chose the wrong family,